I am going to give you a visual representation as to how hypnotherapy works at eliminating all of the stress and trauma that you store in your body. Now, this formula was first made when working with soldiers with PTSD, and then through practicing this formula with many soldiers and then going on to work with civilians coming to me with all kinds of challenges, this is the general consensus of this formula. You can get PTSD from a war zone, from stored emotions from childhood, from traumas that you do remember, from traumas that you don't. And the general formula for this suddenly bubbling up and becoming something that affects your life, PTSD will usually come from the amount of stress that your body has carried, which then gets triggered through various different life events, which then creates a neurosis, which is all of these things that are stopping you from being the person you want to be. So this anxiety, this depression, these panic attacks, these are autonomic bodily reactions, which are then converted into specific physical symptoms. Now, to break that down a bit for you, I'm going to illustrate this to you now through this representation. So here are my Russian dolls. Hope you can see these properly. So here are my Russian dolls. And these are going to represent how we store stress throughout our bodies and throughout our lives, which then bubbles up and affects our lives as adults. So here we go. Let's start off with this smallest one. So just for the sake of this example, let's call her Fee. Okay, so this is Fee. She's 3 years old. And she's living in a home which has a lot of sadness in it. She often sees her mum stressed. Now, at 3 years old, you don't understand why your mum's stressed, okay? Maybe she's moving around a lot. There's not a lot of stability there. Maybe in her home, there's lots of arguments. She's seeing aggression. This is very frightening for a 3-year-old, okay? This 3-year-old now internalizes everything that she sees, and she feels that nothing is safe. Everything is difficult. So to cope, because she doesn't have the coping mechanisms or the resources to look after herself at this age. She's a very small child. She has to rely on her parents. She's picking up that her parents are stressed. She's picking up on these arguments, what she's perceiving as danger. And she internalizes all of this. That's her coping strategy. She hardens herself and she internalizes all of her emotions and she stores them in her body. So all of this fear, all of this pain, because she doesn't want to get in the way, she doesn't want to be in the crossfire, she internalizes all of this. So she could also go to nursery. And in nursery, she's doing the same thing there, okay? To look after herself, all of this emotion is being stored inside of her. So this has started at a very young age, okay? This doesn't always have to be situations like domestic violence. This can just be a small child not understanding the stresses that are going on in their home environment. So this little girl's got older now. So let's pop all of this emotion that's already been stored inside the body into a now 6-year-old girl, okay? So this is 6 years now of internalized emotion, okay? This little girl has taught herself that it isn't safe for her to express herself. It's best for her to keep herself to herself. She doesn't really know what's going on at home. She's had 6 years now of watching an abusive parent, or watching her parents get upset, or watching her parents hurt each other physically, mentally, emotionally. She's now started school at this age. Now maybe she's started to get bullied in school by these children, because these children are noticing that she keeps herself to herself, because this is the coping mechanism that she's learnt to do at home. It's safer to keep yourself quiet and away and in your own little dream world and away from all of this drama. So the kids are starting to look at her like she's a little bit weird. They're noticing she's standing out. So maybe she's starting to get bullied a little bit in school. She's just gone to a new environment. She's 6 years old now. She's still carrying all of that internalized emotion from when she was a 3-year-old. And she's now in school and she's having trouble there. So all of this anxiety, all of this pain and all of this fear, because school to her now isn't a safe place either. This trauma's doubled. It's magnified. Okay? So she's getting a little bit older. So let's say she's 10 years old now. So we're popping all of that internalized emotion that she hasn't been able to express into now 10-year-old. Okay? So this 10-year-old little girl is now very disturbed. Okay? Maybe her dad's left. Maybe her mum's remarried, or she's got a new boyfriend. She's got a stepdad now. The stepdad doesn't understand her. doesn't understand why she's a little bit of a strange child, doesn't understand why she isn't able to socialise very well, or maybe she doesn't like large crowds. Again, all of these years of internalising everything and coming about with this coping mechanism to keep her safe, it's making her stand out. Maybe she finds making friends a little bit difficult, okay? And she's now about to go into big school. This is another environment that is going to bring on and trigger this anxiety that she's already got stored inside her from all those previous 10 years. So let's fast forward. She's 15 now. She's going through puberty. That's not easy for anyone, okay? So we've got all the stresses of puberty. Her body's changing, her hormones are changing, her mind's changing. She's still standing out in school. She's in another unsafe environment. She's now in secondary school. And again, because she's learned to internalise everything, she's become very, very shy. She's very wary of people. She isn't able to express herself, which means that she maybe doesn't have the same social skills as what some other kids have. She's developed all of these limiting beliefs. Okay, she feels like she's under intense scrutiny all the time. Because she's a bit of a sore thumb, she's standing out, people are judging her. Maybe she's developed intense blushing, so whenever anyone looks at her, because she feels like she's always under scrutiny, she just blushes, and then that causes even more laughter, even more probing, even more joking about her. Okay, so she's keeping this tough outer shell. She isn't seen, she isn't heard. So all of this has happened during her childhood through to teens. Let's fast forward all the way up to adulthood now. So all of this anxiety and all of this internalisation and all of these things that maybe as an adult she doesn't even really remember now, because she's got resources to look after herself now. Why is she thinking about her childhood? She's got a job, she's got a relationship, she's cruising, she's all right, she's got all of her resources. But inside is this enormous store of anxiety. And when she's in this job that she's flying in, whenever it comes for her to have to go into a meeting about a promotion, or maybe when she has to do a presentation, or maybe when she is having to express vulnerability in relationships, this surge of fear that literally cripples her just comes out of nowhere. Now, because she's an adult, she doesn't remember all of that stuff as a kid. Because maybe there's something that she can point the finger at and say, oh, I had a super traumatic childhood. Because she can't do that, she's thinking, well, all of these feelings are irrational. Why all of a sudden am I not able to stand up and do my job? Or why is this affecting me when I go out into social situations? Why have I got this crippling anxiety? Why does this fear come over me when I'm presenting in work or going for promotions? I've done a million of these. Why is it suddenly coming out? The reason why is because all these other parts from all throughout her life, they are still inside her, and all of those gathered internalized emotions have the ability to take complete control of her as an adult, to take executive control at any time. So say the fear of that 3-year-old was triggered by a situation that she's in now as an adult. That 3-year-old way of thinking and way of acting can take executive control of her as an adult for that 10 minutes, hour, week, as can that 6-year-old, as can that 10-year-old, as can that 15-year-old. At any point, any of these parts can rise up and take executive control. Why do they do this? Because these parts, even though it seems like they're crippling us and they're holding us back, these parts are sending these surges of trapped emotion, negative emotion that's being stored physically in your body and in your mind, because they are begging you to see and hear them. There were times in your life that you were not able to express yourself. There were times in your life that your body wasn't able to purge out this emotion. Crying is a release of this energy. Being able to vocalize how you feel is a release of energy. Anytime you've had to internalize things, whether you're trying to be strong or you weren't encouraged to speak or whatever situation it is, that stuff doesn't go away. You're shoving it all down, and at some point that trash can of all of the negative events and negative feelings that you've shoved down is going to explode, and it's going to come out. So with hypnotherapy, what we do is we regress you into a really tranquil state where you're able to be so quiet and your mind is so quiet and your body is so relaxed that you're able to tap in to these different parts of you and these memories. And a lot of times they're things that people least expect to come up. These memories of maybe that time that you got lost in a shop, when you were in the supermarket with your mum and dad and you ran off because you got distracted by a toy, and then you suddenly turned around and they weren't there, and it struck the fear of life into you. That memory comes up because that little child needed to be seen and heard. And once they're seen and heard, which is what happens in hypnotherapy, you're able to access a direct communication with all of these different parts of you. Once they're seen and heard, that block, that fear that takes over you as an adult and stops you from doing the things that you do and makes you feel like you're irrational, disappears. So that's you just working on yourself. Now let's take in to how this affects generational trauma. Let's look at maybe your parents or your grandparents and further back. Was it acceptable, socially acceptable, for men or women to express themselves, to speak about emotions? How were they raised? And how were the people before them raised? Because all of this trauma and all of these coping mechanisms that all of these different people, that your grandparents, that your parents, and now that you have developed, are being passed down to the environments that you're bringing the younger generations into. So when you're healing yourself, and when you're accessing these parts of yourself that just want to be seen and heard, you are releasing these traumas. You're also releasing these blocks, these energetic and emotional blocks that small children that are around you, like your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, your friends' children, they are like sponges. They may not understand what you're going through, but they can tell if you've got a big smile on your face, but inside you're full of anxiety, because they are tapped into their basic instincts, just like animals. And they will read you, and they will read that internally you feel unsafe, and they then will internalize that this situation that they are in is unsafe. Hypnotherapy taps into all of these different parts of you, allows you to see them, hear them, understand them, and release the emotion. Once it is released, all of these parts of you can combine again and work together, because every single one feels safe. So you're not only healing yourself, but you're healing the next generations to come. If you would like some more information on how hypnotherapy can help you, or you want some examples of case studies that I've done or people that I've worked with, of course all of the names are anonymous, so you can see exactly how powerful these techniques are, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. If you have tried other forms of therapy that maybe haven't worked for you, they've given you an understanding, but they haven't unlocked these different blocks, please get in touch with me. Hypnotherapy is one of, unfortunately, an overlooked but extremely, extremely powerful technique at allowing you to be the best version of you. I hope that helps.